Other countries, other regions of the world are signing these trade agreements with Korea, which means that their products will be able to enter Korea at a much cheaper price. So if we want to continue to sell American products to Korea, we've got to be competitive. We have to have this agreement. And really, this agreement is lowering the barriers that American companies now face in Korea. There are almost no barriers, no tariffs, no duties imposed on Korean goods coming into the United States, but substantial tariffs or duties, extra costs, on top of American products coming into Korea. So this agreement really levels the playing field substantially.
Does it really, though? I mean, does it create U.S. jobs? Beef has been taken off the table. That is a very contentious issue. Automobile issue, yes. I mean, we know Ford and GM and the American automakers want to get into the Korean market. You go around to any street in Seoul, it's 99.9% Korean cars. Are you convinced that the American car makers can sell their cars into the Korean market and that they will be willing to buy?
Well, yes, the automobile companies, Detroit is forecasting huge increases in auto sales over the next several years. And in fact, imports are very popular here. European imports and now increasingly American imports. But let's look at beef. Beef sales just in the last year have grown by over 100%. There's a huge demand for American beef. And so we're really making sure that more agricultural products will come to Korea at a lower cost, which means that will benefit American producers, American manufacturers, American farmers, American workers. Because the reality is, the more that America can export to Korea, the more they will produce. The more they produce, the more workers they need, and that means jobs.
Do you expect the trade deficit with South Korea to be reduced because of this? I think South Korea had about a $9.4 billion surplus with the United States, $90 billion total two-way trade. I would assume that this would increase following the ratification and implementation of the FTA. But we had some South Korean trade groups saying that this deal will actually boost their surplus by some $460 million per year for the next 10 years, and not reduce it for the U.S.
But actually, we believe that this agreement will enable U.S. companies to sell an additional $11 billion just in manufactured goods and hard goods like agricultural products and commodities, supporting some 70,000 American jobs. That's substantial. And of course, we know that Korean products face very low tariffs or barriers already coming into the United States, and under this agreement, their exports will also increase. But it's in areas that are not, in products that are not now really made in America. So it's not going to really take American jobs away. If anything, this agreement really lowers the barriers that American companies now face, and this will really make American products even more desirable, more competitive, and cheaper in Korea.
Can it be done by July 1st? That's kind of this date that keeps on being bandied about, because that's when the EU supposedly has a targeted date for its FTA with South Korea. Is it critical? And what other heavy lifting do you still have to do to convince Congress to get this done and not have it attached to the other FTAs that are being negotiated with Latin American countries?
Well, I'm here in Korea now with a delegation of members of Congress, both Democrats and Republicans, and they are very supportive of the trade agreement, and they indicate to me that there is very, very strong bipartisan support in the Congress, in the House and the Senate for this agreement. The administration, the White House, is ready to send the agreement up to Capitol Hill immediately. The administration is now simply negotiating with the leadership of the Congress, the House Republican leadership and the Democratic leadership in the Senate on the timing, the procedure, the actual process by which the Congress will take this up. But once they have it, we believe that based on the reports from the members of Congress, that there's very strong support and it will pass. It's a challenge. We cannot ever let up our guard. We have to continue to press because we know that American products and services are in great demand and highly valued all around the world, including China. We just need to make sure that American companies have an opportunity to compete fairly against the Chinese and other companies from around the world.
You think they're allowed to compete fairly? The American Chamber of Commerce report was, while on one side conciliatory, it was also quite scathing as far as market access. They're quite concerned in the last couple of years that there's been some backstepping on the part of the Chinese. Do you share that view?
The Chinese have proposed an indigenous innovation policy that basically says that the government of China will only buy products that have been engineered, developed, created, and patented within China, even though American companies may offer superior products and technology, goods and services. We're constantly fighting to make sure that American companies have equal access. And in fact, we've succeeded. We're making progress, slow, but still progress.
But it's in the implementation. You know that as well as I.
That's right.
In China, they can make all the great statements, they can make these pledges, but it's in the implementation. We've seen this losing battle on IPR for years. China makes pledges, but implementation. It's the same thing as far as market access. How are you going to push them at the SNED in May in Washington?
Well, it's a constant pushing, and it's not just pushing by the United States. It cannot be simply the United States calling and urging for reforms within China. It has to be the entire international community, because China then will respond, because it very much values its view in the world, its standing in the world. But we have been making progress on all of these issues. Is it enough? Is it fast enough? Of course not. And that's why we continue to press, and that's why we use the upcoming SNE dialogue, the annual meetings of the Joint Commission on Commerce and Trade. We don't just take the promises and commitments of the Chinese at face value. We monitor, we report, and we constantly demand and urge action and continued progress.
Is it 2 steps forward, 1 step back? Some have described it as China taking a step back. You're talking about progress, though.
Well, it is sometimes 2 steps forward and 1 step sideways, or 1 step backwards, sometimes 3 steps forward and 1 step sideways and 1 step backwards. But again, we are still making progress. And that's why we continue. The United States government and President Obama are insistent that we enforce our trading rules. That's why we took sanctions and imposed sanctions against China for their flooding of the U.S. market with tires. The Bush administration had never used these remedies before. President Obama was the first president in many years to actually hold the Chinese feet to the fire.
Do you see a more conservative tone, a more strident tone out of Beijing? As someone who lives there, I have seen it. The current ambassador has seen it. Do you see this type of sharpened tone from the Chinese?
Well, I think that you have to look at the relationship over the long term, and we have to continue to work on the relationship, open those lines of communication, and know that this relationship is too important for both sides, and that we cannot take it for granted. It's going to require constant vigilance and attention.
What's your attitude going into Beijing?
Well, it's going to be a very challenging assignment, and but it's also a great adventure. And I know that my dad would be most proud to know that his son is returning to the ancestral homeland as the U.S. government's representative, as the ambassador of the United States to China. But I'm an American through and through, born and raised in America, very proud of all that America stands for as a land of freedom, hope, and opportunity. And I really believe that so much of what we do in America can benefit both the people and the government of China in terms of their aspirations, their dreams of a better standard of living, a better quality of life, and at the same time doing it in a way that increases the number of jobs for the people of America and upholding our democratic values and our values of transparency and openness.
Will your ethnicity work to your benefit or to your detriment?
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends on who you're talking to in China. I think the Chinese leaders know that I'm American, that I'm a representative of the American government, and I am the representative of President Obama and the American people, and that my allegiance is to America. But I think my heritage gives me a greater understanding and sensitivity to all that is China, and perhaps that can help further the relationship better.